Hey guys, thanks for joining back again. We're going to go into Chapter 3, Part 2. Here we go. During the conversation, Carlson refused to be drawn in. He continued to look down at the old dog. Candy watched him uneasily. At last, Carlson said, "If you want me to, I'll put the old devil out of his misery right now and get it over with. Ain't nothing left for him. Can't eat, can't see, can't even walk without hurting." Candy said hopefully, "You ain't got no gun." "The hell I ain't. Got a Luger. Won't hurt him none at all." Candy said, "Maybe tomorrow. Let's wait till tomorrow." "I don't see no reason for it," said Carlson. He went to his bunk, pulled his bag from underneath it, and took out a Luger pistol. "Let me get it over with," he said. "We can't sleep with him stinking around in here." He put the pistol in his hip pocket. Candy looked a long time at Slim to try and find some reversal, and Slim gave him none. At last, Candy said softly and hopelessly, "All right, take him." He didn't look down at the dog at all. He lay back on his bunk and crossed his arms behind his head and stared at the ceiling. From his pocket, Carlson took a little leather thong. He stooped over and tied it around the old dog's neck. All the men except Candy watched him. "Come on, boy, come on," he said gently. And he said apologetically to Candy, "He won't even feel it." Candy didn't move nor answer him. He twitched the thong. "Come on, boy." The old dog got slowly and stiffly to his feet and followed the gently pulling leash. Slim said, "Carlson." "Yeah?" "You know what to do?" "What do you mean, Slim?" "Take a shovel," said Slim shortly. "Oh, sure, I get you." He led the dog out into the darkness. George followed to the door and shut the door and set the latch gently in its place. Candy lay rigidly on his bed, staring at the ceiling. Slim said loudly, "One of my lead mules got a bad hoof. Got to get some tar on it." His voice trailed off. It was silent outside. Carlson's footsteps died away. The silence came into the room, and the silence lasted. George chuckled. "I bet Lenny's right out there in the barn with his pup. He won't want to come in here now no more. He's got a pup." Slim said, "Candy, you can have any one of them pups you want." Candy didn't answer. The silence fell on the room again. It came out of night and invaded the room. George said, "Anybody like to play a little euchre?" "I'll play out a few with you," said Whit. They took places opposite each other at the table under the light, but George didn't shuffle the cards. He rippled the edge of the deck nervously, and little snapping noise drew in the eyes of all the men in the room, so that he stopped doing it. The silence fell on the room again. A minute passed, and another minute. Candy lay still, staring at the ceiling. Slim gazed at him for a moment, and then looked down at his hands. He subdued one hand with the other and held it down. There came a little gnawing sound from under the floor, and all the men looked down toward it gratefully. Only Candy continued to stare at the ceiling. "Sounds like there's a rat under there," said George. "Well, we ought to get a trap down there." Whit broke out, "What the hell's taking him so long? Lay out some cards, why don't you? We ain't going to get no euchre played this way." George brought the cards together tightly and studied the backs of them. The silence was in the room again. A shot sounded in the distance. The men looked quickly at the old man. Every head turned toward him. For a moment, he continued to stare at the ceiling, and then he rolled slowly over and faced the wall and lay silent. George shuffled the cards noiselessly and dealt them. Whit drew a scoring board to him and set the pegs to start. Whit said, "I guess you guys really come here to work." "How do you mean?" George asked. Whit laughed. "Well, you come on Friday. You got 2 days to work till Sunday." "I don't see how you figure," said George. Whit laughed again. "You do if you've been around these big ranches much. Guy that wants to look over a ranch comes in Saturday afternoon. He gets Saturday night supper and 3 meals on Sunday, and he can quit on Monday morning after breakfast without turning his hand. But you come to work Friday noon. You got to put in a days and a half, no matter how you figure." George looked at him levelly. "We're going to stick around a while," he said. "Me and Lenny's going to roll up a steak." The door opened quietly, and the stable buck put in his head. A lean Negro head lined with pain, the eyes patient. "Mr. Slim." Slim took his eyes from old Candy. "Huh? Oh, hello, Crooks. What's the matter?" "You told me to warm up the tar for that mule's foot. I got it warm." "Oh, sure, Crooks. I'll come right out and put it on." "I can do it if you want, Mr. Slim." "No, I'll come do it myself." He stood up. Crooks said, Mr. Slim. Yeah? The big new guy's messing around your pups out in the barn. Well, he ain't doing no harm. I gave him one of them pups. Just thought I'd tell you, said Crooks. He's taking them out of the nest and handling them. That won't do them no good. Well, you won't hurt him, said Slim. I'll come along with you now. George looked up. If that crazy bastard's fooling around too much, just kick him out, Slim. Slim followed the stable buck out of the room. George dealt and Whit picked up his cards and examined them. Seen the new kid yet? He asked. What kid? Said George. Why, Curly's new wife. Yeah, I seen her. Well, ain't she a Lulu? I ain't seen that much of her, said George. Whit laid down his cards impressively. Well, stick around and keep your eyes open. You'll see plenty. She ain't concealing nothing. I never seen nobody like her. Well, she got the eye going all the time on everybody. I bet she even gives the stable buck the eye. I don't know what the hell she wants, George asked casually. Been any trouble since you got here? It was obvious that Whit was not interested in his cards. He laid his hand down and George scooped it in. George laid out his deliberate solitaire hand, 7 cards and 6 on top and 5 on the top of those. Whit said, I see what you mean. No, they ain't been nothing yet. Curly's got yellow jackets in his drawers, but that's all so far. Every time the guys is around, she shows up. She's been looking for Curly, or she thought she left something laying around and she's looking for it. Seems like she can't keep away from guys. And Curly's pants is just crawling with ants, but there ain't nothing come out of it yet. George said, she gonna make a mess. There's gonna be a bad mess about her. She's a jailbait, all set on the trigger. That Curly got his work cut out for him. Ranch with a bunch of guys on it ain't no place for a girl, especially like her. Whit said, if you got ideas, well, you ought to come into town with us guys tomorrow night. Why, what's doing? Well, just the usual thing. Well, we go into old Susie's place. Hell of a nice place. Old Susie's a laugh, always cracking jokes, like she says when we come up on the front porch last Saturday night. Susie opens the door, and then she yells out over her shoulder, Get your coats on, girls. Here comes the sheriff. She never talks dirty, neither. Got 5 girls there. What's it set you back? George asked. 2.5. You get a shot for 2 bets. Susie got nice chairs to sit in, too. If a guy don't want to flop, well, you can just sit in the chairs and have a couple of 3 shots and pass the time of day, and Susie don't give a damn. She ain't rushing guys through and kicking them out if they don't want to flop. Might go in and look the joint over, said George. Sure, come along. It's a hell of a lot of fun. Her cracking jokes all the time. Like she says, one time she says, I've knew people that if they got a rag rug on the floor and a Cupid doll on the phonograph, well, they think they're running a parlor house. That's Claire's house she's talking about. And Susie says, I know what you boys want, she says. My girls is clean, she says, and there ain't no water on my whiskey, she says. If any of you guys want to look at a Cupid doll lamp and take your own chance getting burned, why, you know where to go. And she says, there's guys around here walking bow-legged because they like to look at a Cupid doll lamp. George asked, Claire runs the other house, huh? Yeah, said Whit. We don't ever go there. Claire gets $3 a crack and 35 cents a shot, and she don't crack no jokes. But Susie's place is clean, and she got nice chairs. Don't let no goo-goos in either. Me and Lenny rolling up at a steak, said George. I might go in and sit and have a shot, but I am putting out no 2.5. Well, a guy gotta have some fun sometime, said Whit. The door opened and Lenny and Carlson came in together. Lenny crept to his bunk and sat down, trying not to attract attention. Carlson reached under his bunk and brought out his bag. He didn't look at old Candy, who still faced the wall. Carlson found a little cleaning rod in the bag and a can of oil. He laid them on his bed and then brought out the pistol, took out the magazine, and snapped the loaded shell from the chamber. Then he fell to cleaning the barrel with the little rod. When the ejector snapped, Candy turned over and looked for a moment at the gun before he turned back to the wall again. Carlson said casually, Curly been in yet? No, said Whit. What's eating on Curly? Carlson squinted down at the barrel of his gun. Looking for his old lady. I seen him going round and round outside. Whit said sarcastically, well, he spends half his time looking for her, and the rest of the time she's looking for him. Curly burst into the room excitedly. Any of you guys see my wife? He demanded. She ain't been here, said Whit. Curly looked threateningly about the room. Where the hell's Slim? Went out in the barn, said George. He was going to put some tar on a split hoof. Curly's shoulders dropped and squared. How long ago did he go? 5-10 minutes. Curly jumped out the door and banged it after him. Whit stood up. I guess maybe I'd like to see this, he said. Curly's just spoiling, or he wouldn't start for Slim. And Curly's handy, goddamn handy, got in the finals for the Golden Gloves. He got newspaper clippings about it, he considered, but just about the same. He'd better leave Slim alone. Nobody don't know what Slim can do. Thinks Slim's with his wife, don't he? Said George. Looks like it, Whit said. Of course, Slim ain't. At least I don't think Slim is, but I like to see the fuss if it comes off. Come on, let's go. George said, I'm staying right here. Well, I don't want to get mixed up on nothing. Lenny and me got to make a steak. Carlson finished the cleaning of the gun and put it in the bag and pushed the bag under his bunk. I guess I'll go out and look her over, he said. Old Candy lay still, and Lenny from his bunk watched George cautiously. When Whit and Carlson were gone and the door closed after them, George turned to Lenny. What you got on your mind? I ain't done nothing, George. Slim says I better not pet them pups so much for a while. Slim says it ain't good for them. So I come right in. I've been good, George. I could have told you that, said George. Well, I wasn't hurting him none. I had him in my lap, petting it. George asked, did you see Slim out in the barn? Well, sure I did. He told me I better not pet that pup no more. Well, did you see that girl? You mean Curly's girl? Yeah, did she come in the barn? No, anyways, I never seen her. You never seen Slim talking to her? She ain't been in the barn. Okay, said George. I guess them guys ain't gonna see no fight. If there's any fighting, Lenny, you keep out of it. I don't want no fights, said Lenny. He got up from his bunk and sat down at the table across from George. Almost automatically, George shuffled the cards and laid out his solitaire hand. He used a deliberate, thoughtful slowness. Lenny reached for a face card and studied it, and then turned it upside down and studied it. Both ends the same, he said. George, why is both ends the same? I don't know, said George. It's just the way they make 'em. What was Slim doing in the barn when you seen him? Slim? Sure, you seen him in the barn, and he told you not to pet the pups so much. Oh, yeah, he had a can of tar and a paintbrush. I don't know what for. You sure that girl didn't come in like she come in here today? No, she never come. George sighed. You give me a good whorehouse every time, he said. A guy can go in and get drunk and get everything out of his system all at once and no messes, and he knows how much it's going to set him back. These here jailbaits is just set on the trigger of the hoosgow. Lenny followed his words admiringly and moved his lips a little to keep up. George continued. You remember Andy Cushman, Lenny? Went to grammar school. The one that his old lady used to make hotcakes for the kids? Lenny said. Yeah, that's the one. You can remember anything if there's anything to eat in it. George looked carefully at the solitaire hand. He put an ace up on his scoring rack and piled a 2, 3, and a 4 of diamonds on it. Andy's in San Quentin right now on account of a tart, said George. Okay, that concludes Chapter 3, Part 2. Check back for Chapter 3, Part 3 coming up, guys. All right, take care.